Wanted to point out, snow keeps falling outside. I think somebody has been outdoors outside our studios now. Gosh, I'm going to guess it's probably been 5 or 6 times shoveling the sidewalk just to keep it clean. I also wanted to mention, if I could quickly, our friends at Waddell and Reed here in Twin Falls, they've been handling money, investing it for people, looking out for people's retirement and planning for your children's college educations. They've been doing this for 80 years. That is truly a remarkable sign of success. One of the oldest firms to offer mutual funds. They own and manage two mutual fund families. They invest with a conservative nature. You're not going to have someone frittering your money away because somebody's brother in law has the next pie in the sky idea. And they'll work with you individually. And as an individual, they know that you're not like the guy who comes into the office just before you or just after you. You have an entirely different set of needs and wants. Very often you do. And they'll work with you on that individual basis to make that plan. They take planning personally. That's Waddell and Reed right here in Twin Falls. Also, we're going to be joined by Dr. Jonathan Tripp this morning, and the doctor is talking about wintry weather, which is probably, I would say, one of the most timely topics we've ever had on the radio. Good morning.
Morning.
I was gonna, I was gonna say the big concern I've had the last couple of weeks was falling on the icy parking lots and streets, but the snow has given me quite a bit more traction. Still, there's some issues that are involved with all of that.
Yeah, we definitely have people that are having bad outcomes. We have a family member of one of our staff members who broke their hip yesterday. So be very, very careful. Wear things that have more traction. I even saw a pair of I don't know what they're called yet, but it's kind of like if you imagined a mesh version of the old galoshes with spikes on the bottom.
Oh, they're like little cleats
They,
down
they
there.
do, and they go on running shoes, and they could go on other shoes. And I thought, be a perfect thing for my mother-in-law's Christmas present. So
I was told that law enforcement actually uses those in the winter around here because when you get out of the car
and
in weather like this,
that
you got tremendous traction.
that's one of the greatest moments for fall is as you put your weight all on one foot as you're getting up out of the seat of the car. So yeah, that would be a great time to have that for in and out of a car. Let me tell you about my drive-in, which just barely got here. A better part of my drive because I have a small car, kind of low to the ground, and felt like driving the old cars at Disneyland. I was just in whatever rut I was in and hardly couldn't change what I was doing, but kept me off the side of the road. But it sure made for kind of treacherous stopping at stop signs. So be very careful when you're driving out there today.
This is also a time of year, and I was mentioning this half an hour ago. Um, I came out of church Thanksgiving week and ended up with a cold that week, and then this week it may well have been picked up again at church, but I ended up with a dry throat and a bit of a. I don't feel in any way bad. I just have a dry throat and a bit of a deep cough this week, and again, these things are getting passed around now because people are confined in all of these small spaces.
Like small studios at a radio station, things like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Yep.
I haven't touched anything over there. Don't
Awesome.
worry.
I'll stay on my side. This will be great. Now, today we're going to talk about how to and taking care of yourself and your family during the winter time. And so, that's a perfect segue to coughs, colds, and earaches. I want to talk primarily about kids at this point. And by the way, enjoy your snow day, everybody, because we got up. Actually, had a phone call at about I don't know 5:45 that said schools will be closed for today. And I thought, well, I look out on my lawn, and it looks like maybe there's 2 inches, and there was an inch yesterday, so it couldn't be that bad until I tried to pull out of my driveway and found out that I was in about 6 inches of snow. I thought, my kids had left some of the recycling right behind my driving, right behind my garage door, but it was all snow. So the coughs, colds, and earaches, and kind of a when to see the doctor question. This is a perfect time that everybody that is in school or daycare is going to struggle with coughs and colds, especially just after holidays where we got to go and visit, family, or they came to visit us and shared everything they had with us, including their illnesses. Um, so generally, I will tell patients that if you have a child, we're talking mostly about the infant to 5-year-old range because that group has trouble telling you really what's going on. And so if you've got a fever 101.5 Fahrenheit or higher, especially if it lasts for 2 days or more, then it's probably time to get that checked out. Many viruses, many colds will cause, that type of a temperature, but usually they're lower. They're in high 99s, low 100s, um, and those almost never are a strep type situation. However, I will tell you as an adult that I think a lot of the flu this year does not have its traditional 101 and a half and higher fever. And so when you look at symptoms like body aches, headache, nasal congestion, cough that all hit at the same time, and not just a little, this is the kind of stuff that pretty well about puts you in bed. That needs a look at the doctor or practitioner's office for what's called a rapid flu test. Because if you get treated within the first 48, 72 hours, you can really knock that down and feel a whole lot better. We'll talk some more, it sounds like.
Right. We've got a short break coming up. Dr. Jonathan Tripp in studio with us. It's 8:40. It's 22. Bill Colley answering the telephones. And if you've got a comment or question, especially this time of year about some of these issues, give us a call at 736-0300 after the break. That's 736-0300. And remember, life's too short not to feel good. Dr. Jonathan Tripp joining us on this snowy morning across the Magic Valley. Better Health with Tripp Family Medicine. It's 8:43.
And Happy New Year.
Yeah, a lot of us we're trying to remember that when we write the year on checks. That's always a challenge for me. It's 22 right now, and if you've got a comment or question for the doctor this morning, you can also reach us by dialing 7360300, and perhaps somebody you know in the family is suffering from some of the symptoms we were talking about already. And I was rather curious when you mentioned that the flu is not leaving people with a lot of high fevers, but still they have a lot of the other issues this year.
Yeah, if we go back to, what did that be? About 2007 when the swine flu was so big. I was down in Arizona and it got so epidemic that the state pretty quickly said, we don't even want to hear from you as physicians unless the person is either hospitalized or dead. And, because everybody wanted to know, do we have the swine flu? So the symptoms became really clear. It was 101 and a half or higher fever. It has body aches, and I mean, legs, back, arms, everything seems to hurt. Um, you know, and the classic sign really of flu is like a cold. It's cough, congestion, facial pressure. And so when I grew up, I mistakenly was taught the flu was nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. And that's not the flu. The flu sounds like a cold gone bad. And so, many people will have those symptoms. Happy to check you out for true flu virus. It used to be that we were recommended not to treat you with uh, a medicine called Tamiflu unless we caught you within the first 48 hours. And what are most doctors saying? Well, why don't you wait 2 days and see what happens? And recommendations over the last 4 or 5 years have changed to saying it really still helps with limiting the symptoms, even if you treat it, 4 or 5 days out. But the flu is a problem because it sets you up to catch more serious things like pneumonia, and that's where older people, younger people really get in trouble is when they get pushed. So let me go back to kiddos. Um, when to see the doctor? When you have a fever of 101 and a half, persisting more than 2 days, that's definite. Come get that checked out because that can be strep throat, it can be tonsillitis, or what's called a tonsillar abscess, which is very threatening to the airway. It can be good old earache that just isn't taken care of by, you know, regular. My favorites are things like ibuprofen for pain, because this is a pain and swelling problem, and Tylenol is okay, but ibuprofen actually helps with swelling. So for ear pain, that's a better choice.
And that inflammation, a lot of people warn that inflammation is one of the major causes of long-term illness in this country. If you can reduce it, people will be healthier for longer periods of time in life.
I believe that's true in general. That doesn't mean I'm a proponent of every day, all the time ibuprofen. I would much rather see people use exercise and a little bit of common sense. Like I started doing my exercise for the new year a couple days ago and found out my knees don't like it when I jump a lot. A little's okay, a lot not so good. So common sense goes a long way in reducing that. But we have some really nice herbal type things. Curcumin is big on the radar right now, and I think there's a lot of benefits to that. There's other things that are also available you could look into for supplement type medication. But let me talk to you about kiddos. When I really get worried is usually when they're kind of at the end. And children will do well for quite a while and then just drop off the edge of a cliff, so to speak, in their and where they are with their health. And so, what that drop off looks like is we use the word lethargy. And as parents, we often think, well, our kid that normally just runs circles around the house all day has slowed down to a walk, that's lethargic. But in doctor terms, lethargic means your kid is laying there like a blanket, does not want to move. If you want to do things, that normally would bother them, like tickle their feet or, things that will annoy them, and they just lay there, that's a emergency. That's get to the ER, get to the doctor's office, and usually involves dehydration. So if your child is truly lethargic, don't wait a day and see how it goes.
The other end of this too is, it wouldn't, I guess, be somewhat the opposite of the dehydration. Is some people end up constipated.
Yeah, well, the dehydration actually is what causes the constipation. We in the wintertime, a lot of times because it's cooler, we don't have the direct sun, the direct heat, we don't feel like we're sweating, so we tend to avoid drinking as much. And the main one of the big purposes of the colon is to pull water out of whatever you've eaten or whatever you drank. Um, and so as a result, you get harder stools, less frequent bowel movements, and in a kiddo, often that translates to tummy pain that's right up by the ribs because the gas pressure from being constipated pushes up into that highest point of the colon, and as that colon extends or distends, um, is when you get sharp cramping type pain. That's when the colon hurts. And so a lot of times, if you have a child that says they have a stomach ache, frequently it's not really nausea or a virus that's causing it. A lot of times they lack water and they need a little help getting things moving, and that'll change everything. So consider that. Okay, moving on. Looking at my hands yesterday, I had a nurse just look right at my hands while we were working yesterday and said, "You need some lotion." And believe me, I washed my hands. I can't even tell you, but 50, 100 times a day, depending on the
That
time.
dries them out, even if it's not
Yep.
this type of weather, right?
And when you have cold weather, forced air heating, it really dries out your skin in general. Look in the mirror, you'll find out you've aged about 5 years just by being here in the wintertime. Idaho's dry. It is a high desert, and then when we add forced air heating to it, we really become, shriveled up. So if you want to look younger, get a little moisture on your face. That's the beginning right there. But hands wise, it really is important to take care of them because once you start getting cracking in the skin, now you're susceptible to skin infections. And whether you're, aging or whether you are a teenager in high school, it's important to keep that skin intact to avoid other illnesses. In fact, I've seen a fair number of, uh, shall we say, youth with skin infection called impetigo, which is mostly now caused by a resistant type of staph infection. And that just needs a place to get in. Ringworm is the same way. It just needs a place to get in and it can take hold. And now you got a new issue. So it not only feels better to have more moisture in your skin, but it's worth it to keep that skin intact.
I was at a hotel in Idaho Falls last week, and I was surprised because they put out the soaps and the shampoos and the conditioners, but they had a bottle, small bottle of hand lotion
Yeah.
that they put out on the counter as well. And obviously, I think the one morning when I got outside, it was 3 degrees. The hand lotion when I got back felt really good.
Yep. No, and I have to be careful because I have really sensitive skin. So things with perfumes in it, I try to avoid. Little kids in particular need things that are perfume free. You can even use something as basic as olive oil, and people look at me and say, "You mean like salad type olive oil?" And yes, cooking olive oil is very similar to our skin oils. It does smell like olive oil, but it is very concentrated moisture and it does help restore that. I have some great products at my office over about a 15-year period. Just learned what is better than average, and we have some things that we've used on 1 year olds and 2 year olds with terrible, terrible eczema where they just have open wounds and bleeding skin. And within about 2 weeks, we can have them almost looking like they never had it. So if you need help with that, please contact our office. In fact, do you want me to tell them how to do that?
I think that's a good
That's
idea.
a good way. Okay. Our telephone number is 208 933 4400. So 208 933 4400. You can reach us on Facebook at Tripp Family Medicine and our website, which I was on this morning. It's trippfamilymedicine.com, and I found out how much you can learn about each of our staff members. That's a little bit scary how much they tell about in the day of identity theft and worries. But we have great staff, really good people, and carrying people. So that's it's a good place to come.
You got a mention here. I just want to point out it's 8:51 and we're at 23 and you're listening to News Radio 1310, KLIX, News Radio 1310.com. Jonathan Tripp in studio with us, Dr. Jonathan Tripp and Bill Colley answering telephones. I've got this note here from you about exercise, and you mentioned outdoor exercise because a lot of people this time of year who would normally be outside don't want to be anywhere near the outside. But Brad over at KEZJ, he was out snowshoeing in Sun Valley a couple of weeks ago. Some people love this type of weather and they love outdoor exercise when it's cold and snowy.
Yeah, cold is nice because if you're really working, as you sweat, you heat right up, and as long as you don't stop for very long, you stay nice and warm because you're working. I will say that Brad is probably in slightly better shape than I am. So, the person that's really out of shape to start off with snowshoeing at 7,000 feet probably is going to be trouble as a beginner. But snowshoeing is an awesome activity. In fact, imagine being able to hike, but it's a whole different environment than it would be summertime. So, I think that's a beautiful experience. Exercising is a hard thing to come by because we don't have a routine that fits outdoor wintertime weather, especially when we're worried about falling. So if we go out and we want to walk or we want to run, it has to be weather permitting. But some other ideas, let's see, for outdoors is the snowshoeing, the skiing, whether it's downhill. Today would be a great day to be a cross country skier. You could go anywhere in town you want to. Um, the snowboarding, the skiing, and I put down as a question mark snow shoveling. There's an exercise, but again, all things in moderation. If you have a huge driveway and you never exercise, don't become the next heart
That
attack.
used to make me really sweat
Yeah.
because I would sometimes be shoveling even stairs and um, up to the deck. And I know that when the snow would be a foot, foot and a half deep, you try to take a little off the top
Hmm.
and you don't try to pick up the entire shovelful at once, but a little off the top. But by the time I'd get to the bottom of the steps, I'd be soaked underneath my winter clothes.
Yeah. No, snow shoveling is great. Just pay attention to your own body. Are you pushing too hard? Because you can get back troubles. You can get actual heart attacks happen. I know that from living in the east, northeast, Midwest. They get a heavier snow, and every time there's a heavy snow like today, we'd have multiple heart attacks come through the
This is a,
hospital.
a lighter snow though, even though the depth is pretty big. But
Mm.
if you get that heavy wet snow, even at 4 or 5 inches,
That's a heavy lift.
yeah, you might want to try
Yeah,
to avoid that if you've got some issues, back or heart issues, right?
sure. And there's lots of kids off of school today. I bet you $5 would go a long ways on a shovel job. So there's a thought. Indoors, this is where to change your routine for the wintertime. Looking for things that you can do walking in the house, walking upstairs, downstairs, weightlifting. It does not have to be big weights, and they don't even have to be official weights. They can be Campbell soup cans, they can be milk jugs, you name it. Uh, Dance, yoga, and I put videos, videos, videos. There's a bazillion of them, and so you don't even have to buy them. You could go on YouTube and download your own exercise, whatever you like. Other nice possibilities are going to a gym, especially we have a city swimming pool. Would be excellent for anybody that has achy joints or sore muscles or a back that's in trouble. The swimming pool is ideal, and you'll feel good. It's a you don't even have to swim. You can wade, and it will be good exercise because you're pushing against resistance there.
I saw on TV a couple of weeks ago somebody tested one of those boards that look like the surfboard that they dance around on,
Uh huh.
and the woman who was actually there doing the test said it is very good for you. You wonder sometimes when you see these things on TV if it's just a scam, but she said no, you get moving and it's a good thing in the middle of winter.
Well, the biggest thing I can say is you got to move it or lose it because we know that whether it's arthritic joints that you would think, well, if I move that it'll hurt worse, and the answer is if you move it and do it frequently, it will actually do better than if you don't move it, than if you try to protect it. So in a similar way, if you're not used to doing twisting type motions, do some twisting. If you're not used to climbing stairs, do some stair climbing. You need to strengthen the muscles of your core, your legs, your hips to help avoid you from falling. And it helps burn those calories that we sometimes consume too much of. So let me go to eating a little bit. We want to try to avoid prepared foods, and the main reason is because prepared foods are made to taste good and are loaded with calories, usually fat, sugar, lots of salt. Because that I'll use one, and hopefully nobody's too offended if they're a burrito maker. But the frozen burritos that really are more or less like a soft version of cardboard, to make that taste good over months, you got to put a lot of stuff in there. So if you make your own burritos, guarantee you your calories are going to be a lot less than if you buy the ones that are pre-frozen.
Yeah, and I can find that if I put a little bit of green chili peppers and tomatoes and with the beans and put that on a burrito, I heat it on the stove. It's actually, I think, better than anything I've ever
Oh,
bought in a frozen variety.
by far. So look for vegetables, look for lentils, beans, the legumes type, whole grain breads. Try to avoid what I call concentrated evil, the foods with concentrated calories of fat, sugar combination. My favorites, they're desserts, they're candies, but the prepared foods we often miss because we think, oh, well, this is healthy, this is my main course. Let me throw one extra thing in about skin. This is the perfect time to do some skin rejuvenation. If you want to look 3 to 5 years younger, I have awesome treatments that we can do for home, in the office, and without getting a facelift, and not nowhere near the cost. But we can get rid of age spots and all kinds of things. And even the treatments that we do that are more harsh, there's usually a recovery within about a week.
Well, if I had to have a facelift, I need a crane. Uh, we'll see you again soon.
All right, make wintertime your recovery, your rejuvenation and improvement, because life's too short not to feel good.
Better Health with Tripp Family Medicine this morning on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and NewsRadio1310.com. We'd like to thank Dr. Jonathan Tripp for joining us today. Right now it's 22. We're coming up on 9 o'clock news from Fox and one more hour of top story ahead with Bill Cully.